Okay. Hi, Sarah. Good to see you.
Hi. Hi, Cindy.
Um, Hi there. We were talking last time kind of a bit about your history and what kind of brought you to where you are now. And we learned a lot about your background, but now we're starting to get in the juicy part about the horses and how you got into that. So I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Okay. Um, well, I think I talked about the animals when I started getting back into animals, and that was in Topanga, after the mouse incident.
Yeah.
And then I got a dog for my 40th. That's right. And then soon after that, I got a horse called Silver, and he came to me actually in a dream. And I think you read my book, so I wrote all about it in there. And at the time, I was studying polarity therapy, and I was in Hawaii, and I had made a declaration, like I'm ready now, like I'm ready for a horse. And then I had this really profound dream. I'm not going to go into it because it's quite a long dream and everything, but it was quite profound because everything in the dream happened. It was what do they call that? When you is it, do you know the word? It's just escaped me.
Foretelling or prophecy or
Yeah, yeah. It begins with a P. Predictive? No,
premonition? Premonition.
no.
Okay.
Anyway, don't worry.
It's a P
But
word.
you get the idea. The idea is that, and it was all sort of, some was metaphoric and some actually happened, like literally. And I had just started that job I mentioned at the equine therapy, and my job was to clean them poo, call it mucking out, mucking out, right?
Mhm.
And feeding. So, and the guy who owned it had quite a few horses, and there was this one day this horse came running through this chute, and he came and faced me, and I thought he was going to knock me down because he was running so fast. He was running away from another horse, and he stopped right in front of me, and that's what happened in my dream, like that same incident of horse running towards me, I'm thinking he's gonna run me down, and then he stops right in front of me, and I knew it instantly, like, well, this is him, and he had been put there by his owner, who had him in this other place for a long, long time, but she had left the country. He was just basically alone and in this really dusty, hot boarding place in Lancaster, I think. And she ran out of money and was told she could have him at this place in Topanga for free, I think. So I didn't do anything else, I just noticed things, and 3 weeks later, I was asked if I wanted him. So I didn't even prompt that, and I just said yes, you know. But part of me was terrified. Never had a horse before. Uh, you know, I was I was excited but terrified at the same time. But I said yes because everything was telling me yes. The dream, what happened, the way that he came to me, literally came to me. Yeah. So, and it is this beautiful Arabian. They call them grays in the horse world, but they're really white. I don't know why they say gray, but it was a white horse, and not very big, you know, um, and very sort of extremely sensitive, and had just been through a lot, like a lot. So he was quite shut down, and kind of like had PTSD. So I said yes, and then I I got someone to help me with him because like pretty much like everyone who gets involved with horses, it's like you ride them. So I had this trainer help me, and he was supposedly a natural trainer. And I really didn't know anything. I knew how to ride at that time, but I didn't have a lot of experience with lots of horses. Even though I was working at this place and stuff, I was getting, I was finding my way. And what I noticed was that Silver used to poo like constantly when the guy was there, you know. So to me, that's like, he's terrified. He's shitting himself literally. And the guy said, no, it's nothing. And then it was this, get on him like you got on him 100 times. And it's pop, pop. Like every time I got on him, he popped me off. And, his whole body was like brittle and explosive. Why would you put someone on a horse like that? It's like, you want a horse relaxed, right? I mean, that's obvious. Now, to me, that's obvious. But then I didn't know anything. And then there was one day he said, put the saddle on him and walk him back. And it was this big old Western saddle. I started walking him home. The saddle slipped, and it just like popped him. And he reared up and he basically trampled over me. I landed in the ditch, and he trampled on my head and my ankle. And I mean, I was down lower. I wasn't on ground level, but even so, it was awful, and it hurt like hell. And then he ran off, and I called the trainer. I said, the horse has run off, you know. And so he helped me look, and it was in August. It was extremely hot. It was very, very hot. It was in the afternoon, and we're looking everywhere, and we drove around and in the sort of direction where he ran to, which was in the hills. And then couldn't find him, and I just thought, how crazy is this? My ankle was killing me. I had a headache, and I'm in 100 degrees looking for this horse, and he's lost. Like, how did that happen? And we got back, and then the guy noticed that all the horses around were looking in one area. And so he went and explored, and he found Silver, and he was buried in a ditch in the creek, covered with leaves and brush, and he was caught in there with the saddle. And he'd been there for a while, and he was barely visible. So we got him out, and then I was just like, that's it. I'm not using that trainer anymore, and I don't care about riding. It's I just want to get to know him. I want to have fun, and we'll just find a way. But that's not happening anymore, because one of us is going to die. If not both of us. And and I question, like, what's so important about that? I realized it's not important for me anyway. So I made him this promise. I said, from now on, just gonna have fun, gonna hang out, and you're staying with me. That was another thing. He needed a commitment because he'd been passed around so many times. I said, you're staying with me. I haven't given up on you. Anyway, I started walking him and hanging out with him in his square pen where I was working, and then I noticed that he would follow me, and then I noticed he would mirror my movements, and then I noticed if I picked up the pace, started running, he would run with me. And not only that, but his movements were really graceful and beautiful, kind of like a swan. He put his neck out like this, and it's stunning to watch. And I was like, whoa, he's dancing. And then I was like, we could dance together, and what if we added music, and what if we did a performance and we did like a fundraiser for him, right? So fundraiser in the sense of me being able to afford to take care of him. And that's what I did. I organized it. at the place where I worked, I had friends who played didgeridoos and drums, and all the neighbors came and the locals, and it was really, really fun. And I had a caterer come in. It was vegan, raw food, and this was years ago. This is, I think, 2002, I think, somewhere like that, and or 2003, right around there. And I realized, wow, he's a performer. Like, he really fed off people's attention, and he rose to the occasion. And when they were like, "Whoa," and all that, his energy just, came out. And what else? Oh, so then I noticed, because I started taking him to work with me, and I noticed he was very sensitive to people's emotions that weren't on the surface. And there was one incident where this woman came. We used to work with people who had cancer, and I put him with a woman, and it was basically like, oh, just brush him, or you know, just basically touch him and brush him, groom him, free, like he's not in cross ties or anything like that, but in this square pen. And he just went berserko this one day and was just like trying to get out, and he was crying, and like he was just frantic. And I was like, oh, and she's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, no, he's behaving strange, and it's obvious that he wants to come out, so I'm going to get him out. And what I realized after was that when I asked her, how's she doing? She said, fine, I'm doing fine. But then after I spoke with her, she'd just been diagnosed with cancer, you know, breast cancer, and who knows, she's facing a life death situation, which was all kind of pushed down. But to the horse, it's really terrifying, right? Because it's not being revealed. It's not congruent. That's how the word they use in the horse equine world, and it probably resonated with him as well. Her fear probably resonated with him. And then I was like, whoa, he's so sensitive to people's trauma and things like that. And so then, because I had had the background with polarity therapy, which is energy-based healing, I started to see how we could work together, me and Silva, in that as a platform for healing, whatever, for people. And so started experimenting, and obviously I'm not throwing into the wolves, like if he says he wants out, I take him out, But also I think there was that moment where we came together and we realized, like, this is our mission in a way, like this is something we can do together, because I had all these skills I'd learned, but I wasn't really interested in working with people on the table in a chiropractor's office or something like that, which is basically how you do the business if you want repeat clients and things like that. And I didn't want to work indoors. And it's not that I don't like working on people, and I still do that occasionally, work on people, touching them, and I also do it with horses as well. It's an incredible skill to have, that and craniosacral. But I wanted to be outdoors, so, and I wanted to have a variety in my everyday life, and I wanted to be around my horses, and so I read about equine therapy, and then I had experiences with people that were um, what's it called? Igala. I think it's called Igala. There was a couple that used to come and do work with sobriety people, like people that were in AA and stuff. And I kind of watched what they were doing, and they would use like food to bribe the horse to go places and things like that. And from my perspective, it was kind of like using the horse as a tool other than a sort of relationship experience or exploring the relationship with a horse. It was more like, no, use the horse as a tool to get to Z or whatever. Like, how can you get the horse from A to Z? And it was, oh, use food or do this, but it wasn't like, well, let's get to know the horse and go a little bit deeper and maybe even try to be a bit like a horse, to meet him or her. So I didn't really like what I saw necessarily. It didn't really appeal to me. So I just thought, well, I'm just gonna continue expanding on what I already know, which is rapport and resonance. I know that well. How to be in resonance, how to have rapport with the land, with a person, with a dog, with a bird, with anything, with the universe. Yeah. Be in rapport and have resonance. And it it works. There was another thing that happened at work. There was a horse called Athena. I called her Athena, actually. She was called something else. But she was kind of dumped onto the place that I work for because she had gone through so many people and she just became unmanageable. And she was a red horse. And she would go crazy in the. I saw her kick the ceiling on a shelter, having a fight with another horse. Like she would go berserker, and no one could handle her. And this guy that was working there, he was all kind of machismo. I'm gonna take her out, and I'm gonna show her. And then next thing I know, she's screaming, coming back down the road. She got away from him. I let her in, and then he comes back with like a broken toe, you know. And so it was my job um, to take care of her wounds because she had a lot of these wounds all over her body that were parasitic. There was parasites in there. It was awful. She was really going downhill, and she was very skinny. So the vet had all these ointments and stuff, and she was bandaged up. So I'd have to go like 3 times a day to change the bandages. I used to give her extra food. And it got to the point where she knew I was coming and she'd be waiting for me. And then it got to the point where she'd call for me when I was coming down. And I got it so I could open the gate, she'd come out, I'd have the food, she'd eat the food, I'd do her bandages. She was really easy to work with. Okay. But her reputation was that she was this crazy mare that no one could handle. But this is why I don't take people's diagnosis. When someone says this person is bipolar or they're this or they're that, I don't listen to any of that. I just take them at face value, like, and get to know them, right? So the same with this mayor. And so we established this relationship, and one day the owner, got tired of paying all the vet fees, and this horse couldn't work at the place because it was difficult and everything. And so she put an ad in the local paper. This is before really people were doing internet stuff, and said, free horse, right? So I was there. The owner wasn't there. She was never there really. And people came all day long, drunk people, all kinds of people, but thinking they were going to leave with this free horse, you know. And there was this Mustang, this Palomino Mustang there as well. And they'd always point to him, is that the horse? I'm like, no. Is that the horse? No. And then I go, it's this horse. And Athena's head started here. And by the end of the day, it was on the ground. It was so depressing for me and for her because they'd say, oh, her. Oh, she's so skinny. Well, I don't know if I can breed her, or she's this and that, and just horrible things said about her all day. Like nobody wanted her. and she's free. It wasn't just that, it was just exposing her to all these people who gave the reasons why they didn't want to. And so by the end of the day, and so I called the owner, and who was my boss. I said, you do that again, I'm quitting. I am not going through that again, and I'm not going to let that horse go through that again. And you need to commit to her. This is part of the problem, is that she doesn't have anyone committed to her, and she needs a name change, because her name was awful. I think it was Noli or something like that. And it was interesting because my boss came up with the same name that I thought of, which was Athena. And so she became Athena. And what I started doing was I would bring her to the square pen, and she was really attached to this other horse, a gelding, and I would bring him too. Just bring them both. What's the deal? If that makes her happy and she's not screaming, fine, just bring him. It's not a big deal. I'd have him there, her there. The clients would come and they would bring their kids, and I put the little kids on her. And I have one boy, he was 7, and he was riding and using the reins, and it was all bareback, and just a very light halter, just tied around. And she was fine. She could do that, like nothing over 40 pounds. But and it was really gentle, and it was really just the kid sitting on her. But for the kid, it was incredible. And so she started changing in lots of ways, like realizing that she had value. And then the owner did it again and told me, someone said they're gonna they'll take Athena. And I said, what? And I said, I thought you weren't gonna do that, you know. But she said, well, she's costing me a lot of money. And I said, but she's working actually, and I've got her with I've been using her with kids and stuff, and she needs to go on the hay roll, which is, I told you that, right?
Yeah.
The hay roll. She needs to go on the hay. Oh, no, 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 because this is what, sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I adopted her because she wanted to give it to this woman who does craniosacral. And I said, no, I'm taking her then. I'll take it. So I adopted her. So then I had Silver and Athena. And then I would take Athena with me to work. And that's when I was working with people I wasn't saying anything because I was going to see how it went. And then that's what happened. And then I said to the owner, Athena needs to be on the hay roll. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, she's been doing stuff actually. She's been letting kids ride on her. And she couldn't believe it. She said, no way. And I said, yeah. She said, I have to come and watch. I said, come and watch. And so then she came, she saw, she said, okay, she's on the hay roll. So that was really great. And so from my experience with Athena, it was getting to know the mare, get to know them, right? And I had her about 2 or 3 years, and then she choked on an apple. It's really awful. There's
Wow.
it got stuck in her esophagus, and yeah, she had to be put down, and it was really sad. She was old. I don't even know how old she was, but she was pretty old and beaten up and everything. But at least the last 2, 3 years of her life were like really great. And she taught me a lot, and she taught me that horses can come around. They'll come around, if you give them time. And right when she was put down, like the vet said, don't let her eat anything for like 24 hours. I'm going to come back tomorrow, or don't let her eat anything tonight or anything tomorrow. And I was like, how am I going to do that? And he was going to try again to like flush it out. And I just stayed with her, and she was fine. And it's kind of like she knew. And I spent as much time as I could with her. And she wasn't complaining or anything, and then he came and he tried again and it just didn't work. She was just bleeding a lot, and it was horrible. And he said, I think it's time to put her down. And I just was with her, and it was really beautiful but very sad. But she taught me like so much about horses and their strengths, and their hearts. And so yeah, so then after that, I started getting Premarin mares because that whole Premarin industry blew up in 2003 when they discovered that Premarin gives women breast cancer and heart disease. Did you know about all that?
Yeah, I heard there was a study about that, and
Yeah,
another study that said, "Oh no, it's
yeah,
okay." But
it's not. And the irony is, or was, is that the horses that I started adopting from that industry, because once that um, study came out, the sales went down, they plummeted. And that Premarin was the third largest selling pharmaceutical at the time because it's like a ching ching drug. You have to take it all the time until you die, right? So for anyone that doesn't know, it's a hormonal replacement therapy. They call it HRT, and they get it from pregnant mare's urine, and that's what Premarin means. Premarin. Premarin means pregnant mare's urine. It's in the name. And it's mostly in Canada, Alberta, somewhere also in the States up north. And the horses are basically confined. They're given very little water, to just enough to keep them alive, so that their urine's concentrated, it has more estrogen in it. They have bags underneath them. Then they give birth to their foal, and then the foals are just basically discarded, or they recoup their stock with the foals. But most of them go to the feedlot, or if they don't die, because they really don't care about them. So I have a Permian mare called Diva. She was a yearling when I got her. She was rescued by the Animali farm. I think that's what they were called, Animali. They were up in near Santa Barbara. They're not around anymore. But and I still have Diva, and she's about 19 or 20, and she's stunning. So a lot of the horses were big horses, Percherons, Shires, because they're more docile. They don't put up a fight, and they're going to produce more, right? And I still have a horse called Ruby that I got when she was young too, from that industry. And then I had a horse called Jackie and a horse called Lady, and they've both passed. Um, but those mares were amazing, but they come and they don't know anything. They don't know how to pick their feet up. They've never been handled really. They're barely halter broke. So I got Ruby, Diva, and Jackie, and I started taking them to work. And I just thought, isn't this ironic that the women that are coming to me, because some of them told me they'd been taking Premarin and now have breast cancer, that the these horses have served both ends, served producing Premarin, and now they're working with women who are suffering from the side effects of Premarin. It's crazy, right? Um, but I just want to say something else that's a bit of a pre-story to that. Is when I first moved to Topanga, I think I mentioned last time that I was into meditation and manifesting and all that, and I want to live in Topanga, and I ended up at this place in Cheney. Cheney, it's like a little valley in Topanga. Cheney Canyon, and the woman that used to live there called Mara, I never knew her, but she died of breast cancer, and she was in her 40s. She wasn't that old. And everything I did, people would say, like, "Oh, Mara used to go there," or "Mara used to do that." And I'm like, "What?" I'd hike and I'd go to these caves and, "Oh, Mara used to do that." And I used to hear her name a lot, And then I was doing um, sessions in the little house that I had learned. I was practicing polarity therapy in the cranial. And part of that work is that you invite in guardians or guides or, you know, um, benevolent spirits to help you with a session. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want Mara in the session. I want like master healers in this session. I was a bit intimidated and I had an opinion, that she wasn't worthy of being a teacher or a guardian, right? Again, total misconception on my part, right? Um, so around that time too, I had started playing clarinet again. I've been in and out of music my entire life, but I started playing clarinet and I decided to record a CD of all clarinet arrangements that I had written. And I ran into this guy at the local cafe, and he overheard me asking someone, "Do you know anyone where I can record?" And he said, "Yeah, I got a place just up here. I can do it for you." So I worked with him for about 3 months, and I spent a lot of time in his apartment, and we we finished it. And then he had some kind of party there, and he said, "Oh, Sarah, do you want to come to this party at the house?" I said, "Sure." So I went there and we're outside, and then someone mentioned Mara. Okay, so just FYI, Topanga is quite a big place. I think there's 20,000 people that live there. I say that, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of people that live there, right, in Topanga. It's pretty big. And I go, Mara, because that's kind of an unusual name, right? And they go, "Oh, yeah, Mara used to live, she lived where I did the recording." Right? So she lived in the house where I was living, and then when she got ill, she moved there, and that's where she died, in the place where I did the recording, which was an apartment, in the literal apartment where I was recording. And I was like, whoa, what are the chances of that? You know? So then I realized later, when I'm doing this work with the horses and people with cancer and breast cancer, right? My whole journey getting into horses and then into healing and then working with women with breast cancer. That's what Mara died of. Right? So then I'm like, whoa, she was guiding me, even though I had this opinion that she was lesser in some kind of way. I mean, master healers come in all forms. Or so that was pretty crazy because I had no idea I would be working with horses. I had no idea I'd be doing any healing work. Like, I had no idea about that. It wasn't like something I said, I'm going to be doing this.
Mhm.
I just followed my instinct. Anyway, so then the tension between me and the owner got really bad because I'd been working there for about 7 years, and there were a lot of things that she did that really annoyed me, and she was annoyed by me too. And we were kind of in this codependent relationship because all my horses were on the hay roll. I had negotiated my salary up, 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 and I was the only person that could do what I did.
Mhm.
I lived there, it was convenient for me. And so I had established this life, daily routine, and she paid me, but the business wasn't making any money. Like, even though it was nonprofit, it wasn't really covering the overheads. So she was basically paying me out of pocket. And so she kind of resented it, you know, and I could tell, but also I kind of resented her because I felt trapped. You know, I felt like I've created this lifestyle and it was totally dependent on her, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And I couldn't see how I could disentangle from that.
Mhm.
And and so it happened one day. She just said to me, "You know what? We're moving and we're going to Temescal Canyon, and you can either come or if you want, you can rent my place and do your own business."
Mm.
Yeah. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to Temescal Canyon because that's about an hour away. And I wouldn't be able to walk there because I wanted to walk to work.
Mhm.
And so I just said, okay, I'll rent your place. And we worked something out where the client segued to me. I gave her a kickback on every client for a certain amount of time. And and then eventually I moved out of her place and I went closer to my neighborhood across the street from where I lived. There was a man who said I could have my horses there.
Mm.
And then I did my business there. And I was there up until about 2014. That's when I left. Um, but I really needed that shove, you know, to disentangle from this relationship that was very triggering. Like she triggered me and I triggered her, you know. But at the same time, we thought we needed each other. But in
Yeah.
actuality, we didn't, you know. And it worked out. And it was in 2008 when there was that crash, you know, economic crash and everything. So it was probably like not a great time to start a business. But I didn't used to watch television. And I haven't watched television in years. So I didn't really know what was going on. And people would tell me stuff and I just didn't really pay attention. And it was good. I did fine, you know. I'm still going. Since then, I'm still going, still doing my business. And I just feel like if I'm supposed to be doing this, then I'm going to be taken care of. You know, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it feels 100% like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it has changed through the years. You know, when I left Topanga, I stopped working with kids and horses because I had quite a successful children's program. And Silva is really the core of that because he loved kids and he was really good with them and he was great with toddlers. And I literally would have a toddler in there walking around and Silva would gently follow them, you know, and very gently like give him a nudge or something like that. But he was really careful and I 100% trusted him. And I used to do open days and I would invite people, come and check it out, bring your kids. And then I would just say, like, all the kids come in and the parents stay out there, the adults stay out there, because I would have Silver loose, right? And then Silver would just stand there and I would have each kid approach him and I had a little step thing, platform, and so that they could reach him and just touch him. And I would just say, you know, touch him and listen to what he says to you because he might say something to you. You know, just listen through your hands, see what he says. And it was an exercise in listening and approaching and not, you know, not just like this, but like connect. Let's connect in a gentle way, like you would with a bird. That's what I used to teach the kids too. Like you're approaching a bird. Horses are like birds. They get scared very easily. They'll fly away, you know, or run off. And so I had all the kids, and then next thing I know, you know, there's Granny underneath the neck of Silver trying to get a photo of Johnny, you know. And I'm like, what? And Silver's loose, right? So I'm like, what are you doing? And she said, I'm taking a picture. I said, adults stay out there. And she said, well, I have horses and I know horses. I said, you don't know mine. And I said, you need to get out now. And that's how I talk to them because you learn how to have strong boundaries when you're working with horses, when you have horses, being with horses, you have to have boundaries because you will get hurt. Someone will get hurt. I've seen it again and again and again. When I worked 7 years at that place, I saw everything. Kids getting popped off of ponies, um, volunteers deferring to the parents' authority. It's all about, you know, staying in your authority, not deferring your power to someone else, and that's when an accident happens. And so I had to get really clear in that for so that my business would keep survive, because if I have an accident, that's it. You know, I had insurance and all that, and it is dangerous. I have a friend, and he literally has people on video say, "I know that I could die doing this with horses." He has to have them say it on video
Mm.
for his liability, you know?
Wow.
And it's true. It's true. Um, but because with Silver, I knew him, like, really, really, really well, and he knew me, and we were a team, and he knows what we're doing. He knew it. The programs came from him, like, I would create them based off of him and what he was really good at and what he could teach, and he never hurt anyone once, you know, never, ever, ever. And but something like that, where you have an anomaly, you know, someone comes in to interfere with the energy, and they think they are entitled to do that because they have horses, you know. That's the kind of mentality that I dealt with on a daily basis with people. And to talk to someone, you know, in that way, like, I don't think I even said, "Please, can you get out?" I just said, "You know, you need to get out now." Um, you know, I could lose that business, but I don't want their business if they're gonna behave like that, you know? Um, so I had to put all this sort of, "Oh, I'm gonna hurt someone's feelings, or I'm gonna offend someone, or they're not gonna like me," all that's gotta go, right? Because what's important is that there's order, that there's, everybody's on board, and we all know how to behave, and the kids were great. The kids weren't the problem. It was who they brought with them.
It was their ride.
Yeah, and then it would be aunties, it would be extended family. I was telling this to someone the other day who wants to do a kids business, because I had a, compost toilet, right? I had to put everything in there, electricity, compost toilet, I put a yurt there. I put all my fencing there and everything. It was just raw land when I set my business up there. And this compost toilet, even though it was a $1,500 one, it was terrible. It could only handle about 3 or 4 people. So on one day, I might have 40 people there with all the extended family members and everything, you know. And every morning, there would be a leak of piss, and uh, you know, it was terrible. And was the one who cleaned that up. And I couldn't ask any of my volunteers or even my employees to do that. It was just so gross. So I did that every morning, and I knew that the more people that came, the more piss I got to muck, you know, clean up. So, and not just that, it was, I got to watch everybody. I got to have eyes everywhere because someone's sticking their fingers in the horse's mouth, or doing some crazy stuff, like doing something they shouldn't be. And like I said, the kids were great. The kids were great, but for whatever reason, the adults felt like they were above the rules or whatever. So it was quite stressful, actually. It was
Yeah.
quite, and I realized on a business level, you know, I was just charging for one. I was charging for the kid, you know, and I realized, like, I should be charging per person, even though the family's not participating. You know, they are in a way because they're watching,
Mhm.
but so I sort of all figured that out later. But then I was like, I'm just gonna not do the kids anymore. Also, I was doing it no bit, no saddle. We had someone lead the horse, and then someone on the side, the sidewalker. and uh, my horses were so good. They were really good at what they did. And um, what was I going to say? They were really, yeah. So the horses were really good. So I had a surcingle, which is basically like a handle with a strap, and it would go on the horse, and that was on the bareback pad. And the kids would hold on to that, and as long as they could hold on to that, and they could put a helmet on, because some kids didn't want to wear a helmet, then they could go on the horse, and then they would be walked around. It wasn't like kids holding reins and stuff in the regular classes that I did. And I started with kids really young, 2 years old. And I said, if they can hold on to the handle, they can get on the horse. If and they're okay with a helmet. And I had one mom who came, and she was pregnant, and her little boy just loved it. And then when that baby was born, the first words that baby was saying was "nay nay," and she would just reach for the horse like that. And the mom knew. I said, "No one under 2." That was my rule. And the mum looked at me. She said, "Oh, do you think that she could?" And I said, "You know what? If she can hold on to the handle and she's okay with the helmet," she was grabbing the helmet. And she did. We got her on when she was 1 year old,
Wow.
which any business would be like, "Oh, you're crazy." But this baby was literally, coming there when she was in the womb, and and the joy from the other kid, because the kids would talk about it all week, before they came,
Wow.
was infectious. She just was born to be on a horse, and so I was doing it in that way. But like as far as insurance, like if anything happened, they could say, "Well, they weren't wearing a saddle, or you didn't have a bit in the mouth," because
Wow.
of all these stipulations. You got to have a bit on the horse, like that's going to do anything. And so I kind of did everything the way that I wanted to do it. And I had to be, really safety conscious, which I was, but it was exhausting. And then I just thought, there's other people that can do this. Like my real work is really the healing, the
Mhm.
the therapy stuff, which I really loved, and I was doing that as well. The constellation work, essentially. I mean, me and Silva had uh, things that we were doing, and then we segued into the constellation work, and then that superseded everything else. And I kind of integrated a lot of the other things in it as well. And Silva was just incredible. Like he would just go to where the cancer was in the body. He'd put his nose on
Wow.
it, or he'd touch part of the body. And I'm like, "What's going on with your arm?" "Oh, actually, I had 10 operations there or something.
Wow.
And I remember one woman came, and I did, what was it? There was something online, a meetup or something. I think it's called Meetup or something, and I
Mhm.
said, "Come and experience horse healing or something, free or something, like as a promotional thing to get people interested." And I had this woman come, and people, I guess, don't read it properly. They think it's writing, or they think, even though I said it's on the ground and stuff. And this one lady came, and Silver just went right up to her body, and then she said, "Yeah." She gave out some information, and then it turned out that she'd had a lot of abortions, and it came out through because it was started to get really obvious, from the way that Silver was behaving with her. And she she it was a lot of abortions they had, and I have no judgment on that, but she was saying that she was Christian and all this, and she couldn't get out of there fast enough. Like she even left her jacket behind and never came back for it. Like it freaked her out
What
really
did
bad.
Albert do? He just came up to her stuff.
No, it was more, it's intuitive. All right. So constellation work is about who's missing. And
Oh, I see. That's right.
yeah,
So
so
he brought that up.
abortions are missing. Yeah, that
There were
because
all these
there's
kids at
tension.
yeah.
It's very subtle, right? So there's tension in the energy field, and Silver's showing me there's tension. So, like, where's the tension coming from? What's that related to? Those are the kind of questions I ask, right? And then constellation work is who's missing? Well, who's missing? So then I ask, did you have an abortion? Yeah. How many? And then it was a lot. I think it was like I want to say 8 or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she obviously felt really bad about it. And again, constellation work is about who's missing, right? It's not about shaming anyone, or it's not political. It's not at all. But it is a very sensitive area. But it shows up a lot. And for me, it shows up all the time. Other constellation facilitators, not so much, maybe. I talk to peers and they have other areas which show up for them.
Mm,
Uh, but yeah, so she couldn't get out there fast enough because really she wasn't expecting that. And I don't want to scare people. It wasn't my intention to scare her off or freak her out. And I kept saying, there's no judgment here. And to try and explain that work to someone who's not even aware of that work or has never even heard of it is difficult.
mhm,
It's difficult. But I guess I'm trying to explain the way that me and Silver worked and how amazing he was. And then we also worked with people who had committed suicide in the family, where a mother had lost her son to suicide. And I remember one of my volunteers, it was his mother, and he asked me, can I bring my mom? Because I lost my brother to suicide and stuff. And she came, and Silver instantly went in the role of the son, who committed suicide. It was so obvious that
wow.
he was in the role of him, yeah. And the mother was able to release all her guilt. She felt, if only I had done this, or if only I had done that, and felt incredibly guilty. And Silver was just being really present with the energy of her son and just how much they loved each other. And then that just brought the frequency up very high, and it allowed her to release a lot of her pain, through tears and stuff. But it was really beautiful. But he was of that caliber, like he could do that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I think in the book too, I mentioned where he well, a couple of things that he did that were quite funny because he also had a great sense of humor. And someone I know, she wanted to dance with him the same way I did, and but Silver would play with people, kind of, right? So she would kind of imitate what I did with him, which was basically like raise the energy up, run around, and but then Silver's just watching her, and he's in the center and really not moving at all, just kind of watching, and she was doing everything, and it was hot, and she got really exhausted, and she's like, why isn't he dancing with me? He's just watching me. And I'm like, because I said, you gotta meet him, you gotta, and she tried again, same result, and she got really frustrated and started crying, because she was so frustrated. And Silver went over because I had this wand. It's basically a crop that I put a tail on it. Silver went over to the wand, picked it up in his mouth, and started banging the fence with it. Like, hey, you want to do this or what? And so I said, look what he's doing. And she turned around, and it was funny. So she started laughing, and she just went in there and got it. And it was like the most beautiful performance I've ever seen. It was just me watching, and we didn't tape it or anything, but it was really beautiful because she got it. She broke through this sort of idea that she had to do it a certain way, but it was really about how him and her could be together. And and she realized that he's having fun and she wasn't. See, so he was having fun
He was just
with,
amused.
yeah, but it is about fun. That's what
Yeah,
it's about. It's
and
not a
letting go.
job or, yeah, it's not, it doesn't have to be a certain way, right? It's freestyle.
Mhm.
So that was really funny. And then another time I was working with someone here and I had her do a session and I was supervising it. And Silver got the stick in his mouth and he did a line in the sand. And I said, okay, we're done. And she said, what do you mean? I said, that's enough. And because she was learning, so she didn't know really the ending of things, like you do a
Yeah.
piece and there's an ending. It's sort of organic, right? So she was going beyond the ending, organic ending. And
Mm.
he was basically said, no, this is it, the line.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And then another one was, which was in the book, where we did a ceremony for someone whose grandma committed suicide, and we were doing this ceremony, and basically in the constellation world, like I make a lot of stuff up, and when I say that, I make it up because no one's told me, or like I didn't read about it, but it's creative, I guess, right? And you're allowed to. I teach that, like, let your intuition come through, instinct, and just do something. Do something. Do what's needed. What's needed in this situation? That's what you ask. And so we did this ceremony for the grandma, and then we turn around, and there's Silver with a stick. I don't even know where he got it, and he's drawing a circle in the sand. And the client was more sort of amazed than I was because I've seen him do it before. But she said, "What's he doing?" I said, "I don't know. He seems to be doing something in the sand." She said, "He's drawing a circle." And I said, "Yeah, we've come full circle now. This is complete. It's complete." Yeah. So that's what he was. That's what he was saying, and it was. It was complete.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I know, right? When I talk about it, it sounds really crazy, but that's that's how he was, and I don't know if it's because he was an Arabian. Arabians are like on a whole other level. I love Arabians. I don't have any now, but or whether it
They live
was
long? They
him.
live longer?
Huh?
There's Arabians that live longer, that can live really long lives, or maybe
Uh,
one.
Not necessarily.
Mm.
No, not necessarily. I mean, he passed at 35. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. 2000 and I want to say 2019. He passed. Yeah, around Thanksgiving. Um, but no, it's Arabians were bred in the Middle East, and they were really enamored. They were like treated like royalty. They used to live inside the tents, and they would never step on the children or anything, and they were very personable. So they're kind of wired to have a relationship with humans more than other breeds. And he was actually a purebred Arabian. He was a stallion, and I have his papers, and it's got all his ancestors' names in it. And
Wow.
yeah, and he was at a breeder place, but that really wasn't really what his gift was. And he wasn't very good at it, I guess, because he got sent to auction, probably, I don't know, around 13 or something like that. And then a woman I know got some funding, and she went to the auction and she bought like I think 10 or 12 horses, and he was the last one that she pulled because he was going to the meat place for sure. The feedlot, which is death for horses, basically. And so she pulled him, and um, she had him for a while, and that's who I got him
Oh,
from
okay.
her. Yeah, she had him castrated and everything. Uh, yeah, but he was really special. And then when he died, um, right towards the end of his life, like he had terrible hip arthritis, like I literally would get him up off the ground. I would pull him up, and because once he went down, he had trouble getting up
Yeah.
because horses want to lay down. Um, but mentally, he was really on. Like he was so on mentally, and I took him for a walk, and because he had kind of stopped eating, and I took him for a walk, and he collapsed, and I
Mm.
couldn't get him up, and I called the vet. The vet wouldn't come. Sorry, I'm not in your area. I'm serious. It's really hard to get a vet out here. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna sit with him till he passes, because they'll eventually die when they're down, And then this neighbor came by on his motorbike, and he saw us, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I went, and he came over, and he got him up. I couldn't believe it, but he got him up
Wow.
with no nonsense. I didn't even say anything. He just managed to get him up. I said goodbye. I walked him home, and I thought, um, I need to get the vet out here tomorrow, because also the coyotes were very loud at night,
Oh,
and they can smell him dying, they know it. And I just thought, I don't want the coyotes getting him.
no.
And so I begged the vet. I was calling him really early in the morning at 4 in the morning, and I was like, I'll pay you whatever it takes, and you need to come help my horse leave. And anyway, so he did. He came out. But the next day, after he passed, I live in this yurt, right? You can see it. And at the top, there's a little dome. But I don't have any windows open or anything like that. I have screens. But the next day, there was a bird in here, a little tiny bird. And I was trying to get it out, and it wouldn't, didn't really want to get it come out. And it wasn't scared. I eventually got it out. I went back to the kitchen, and did some things. In a couple of hours, I came back, and it was back in there again. And how did the bird get in there? Like, there's no way that bird could have gone in. I don't know how it got in, but I knew it was him. I knew it was like him playing a joke on me, and letting me know it's okay. It was really beautiful.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
That's
but
great.
yeah. So he really, his name is the place Silver Horse Retreat. I tell people it's because of him I'm here, and it's true. He totally changed my life. I changed his life. We did something really great together. I'm still doing it. I feel he's still working on a spirit level. And yeah, and um, what else about that? So I just got a new horse. You knew that, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, Apollo. His name is a little Mustang. He's like a pony. He's not a pony. He's 14 too, but he's really little. And
Very cute. I
yeah,
saw
he's
the
cute.
video.
Yeah, he's cute. And he's a horse again that nobody wanted. Um, couldn't even give him away to people. And I can I w- I can tell why though, because he's really pushy. And what I think his issue is, I found out backstory from him from someone on Instagram that had recognized him from the pictures that I put out. And I said, "Tell me everything you know about him." And she used to be at the same boarding place as him. And he was basically a stallion. He was a Mustang that was born in a captivity. His mother had been rounded up. So they call those slickers. They don't have the marking on the neck. like the brand that Mustangs have. Did you know that they have a tattoo
Uh,
on their neck? Yeah,
oh, I didn't know. No.
yeah. Anyway, so he doesn't have that. But you can tell he's a Mustang. Anyway, from what I could gather, he was sold to someone who had him at this boarding place as a stallion, and so stallions, they isolate them. They'll never socialize them, obviously, because they're gonna impregnate mares, right?
Mm,
So it's very lonely and
yeah.
unnatural kind of life for a stallion. And then
Mhm.
he was 4 years old when he got castrated, and then a family, a mother and daughter, bought him, and it was sort of for the daughter. But you've got a young, unexperienced teenager with a very inexperienced horse who doesn't even know himself yet to be a
Wow.
horse. And they sent him off to training, and he came back, but uh, he was too much horse, what I gathered, for the teenager, and she basically lost interest. So then they wanted to sell him, and they asked for sort of a ridiculous amount of money, and then dropped that price to really low. So that's a flag for people that want to buy a horse. Like, how come you drop the price like dramatically? And then you basically can't sell him, and
Wow.
then they couldn't give him away, and then they just begged my friend who has a mini rescue in Malibu, begged her to take him, and she took him. And then she said, "I think he'd be really good with you." And I don't just take horses; I can't, you know. But I felt with him, uh, it was a good feeling about him. So I said, "Yeah." And then I did a fundraiser, and thank you so much, Cindy.
Sure, I appreciate it when people do this kind of thing. So I'm happy to support and, I feel like such a small way compared to what you're taking on.
Yeah, I have him at the top with my other Mustang mare, Corazon, and he. So what I'm learning about him, and it's only been since Thursday he's been here. What I'm learning about him is that he desperately wants to be with other horses, like,
Mhm.
and but he doesn't know how to be with other horses.
Mm.
So she's basically teaching him, like, get off me, can't have that food. And they've gotten into some scuffles. But I'm monitoring them. I can hear them from here. I can hear them when they get into it. I've gone up there. He had a few cuts on his legs. She had a couple, but he's more beat up than her. But it's not terrible. He's not limping. Um,
That seems scary to be able to monitor that and
yeah,
understand when you might have to.
yeah. I mean, I have skills that I do that I don't really talk about. But so I use the I Ching. Do you know the I Ching?
I've heard of I Ching with the where you roll the
Yeah,
dice or
it's a divination. It's really old. It's from China.
I've s-
Um,
I've seen them.
it's it's called the Book of Change. So I've been using that for years and years and years and years. But it's
Oh,
basically to get advice. Yeah. But I have it on my phone. You can get a I Ching app. There's
oh,
many many different translations, but I know it really well because I've been doing it for so long. So I can kind of do it quickly on my phone, and then
mhm.
get a basically feel about what's going on. It basically gives you a snapshot of what's happening, like the
Oh,
tone. But the whole thing about it is that it will change. The Book of Change is based on nature and the evolution of the seasons and the relationship between the sky and the earth and things like that. It's really beautiful, actually.
interesting.
Um, yeah, so I did that, and essentially it was like difficult beginnings, but it's like if you can get through this difficult beginning, it's going to be amazing. It's going to really be worth it. So obviously I don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah.
But the other thing I did that I had done for Corazon years ago was I did a journey. So I I know how to journey, shamanic journeying and all that. I taught it back in 2020, when everyone was locked down. but I've done that for years as well. And it's not something I do every day, but I did a journey for Corazon once when she and Diva were fighting and they were getting into it. They were going butt to butt and they were best friends, but they started fighting. And I was like, oh no, because I really didn't want to separate Corazon. So I did a journey and for Corazon, and it was essentially what happened in that was that she got reconnected with her ancestors and she's a Mustang, right? And her family, she got reconnected in that, and it worked. They didn't have one more fight after that
Wow.
because basically Corazon knew her place because Corazon needed to back down, right? Because horses have a hierarchy, and that's about the herd is about establishing their place in the hierarchy, and so Corazon needed to back down, and she did, and there were just no more fights ever, never.
Oh,
Yeah, and so I remembered that, and I thought, oh, maybe I should do a journey for Apollo. So I did that last night, and it was a similar kind of journey where he had. So basically, what happens? I have like a vision, and it's either a metaphor, or it can be literal as well, but it's not really important. It's just like you're getting to see where the soul splintered, what happened, and then you heal that in whatever way kind of presents itself, and then you bring that back to them through a crystal or something. And for him, it was similar, where he was isolated from his family, especially his mother, and then he had fallen, and they'd all galloped. They were galloping, and he had fallen, and then they all left him, and he was so alone, and he knew he was going to die, and I whistled for them and they came back, and his mother started feeding him, and all the mares just brushed him lightly with their tail to let them know, we're here, you're being supported, and all the uncles and the males were around and just held space for him. And that's what he needed. He needed that connection. And then I blow that in a crystal, and then this morning I just blew it into him. And last night I didn't hear any fighting, because they usually were fighting at night. But who knows? It's a bit premature. When I went up there this morning, the energy felt a little different between them. I know that Corazon wants to get out of there. Like, she's starting to get a bit sick of it up there. She likes to be down with the others.
uh,
But we'll see, if it does continue, then I'll probably separate him. Yeah.
mm.
But for now, right? But I haven't heard any fighting
Oh,
yet.
good.
So,
So you put him with Corazon first, and then after they
hmm
get along, you put them all together in the herd. But
yeah.
he gets along with
Yeah,
Corazon.
because he has to learn how to, because he has to learn about placement and his rank in a way, where he is. And I mean, she could annihilate him. She's got these really long legs, and she's got a terrific back kick, but he's a little feisty one, and he's just punch in and stuff. Even though he's following her everywhere, he wants to go everywhere where she is, and so it's like socializing, like learning how to get along, and once you've established that, it's everything goes better. Um, and
Yeah.
it's the same with people. It's the
Yeah.
same with people. And it's not necessarily like because the one that maybe is dominant is better than you. It's not about that. It's just like you can't be on the same level. Even people in partnerships, one of the partners is the leader,
Hmm.
or is gonna, and it could. go back and forth, you know? I think
Yeah.
that happens
Everyone's in
as
different
well.
areas, you know.
Yeah. And people can change, but things go better when you like when I was in the role of the employee and with the employer, and I thought I knew better than her, you know, that's not good for business. That business is not ever going to really work well because I'm not in my role as the employee,
Mhm.
right? I thought I could be a better boss than her, and whether that's true or not is beside the point, but it's just not good for the functioning of the business as a system because I'm
Mhm.
out of place, right?
Yeah.
That's constellation work, you know. And the
Yeah.
same in the family. If when people feel that they know better than their parents, or
Mhm.
that they can say their parents, are this or that, or sort of conceptualize them into a label of some kind, right? That's very kind of arrogant and inflated, and they're kind of acting like they're their parents, but they're not. There's grandparents. They have parents already. You can't be that,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
So,
Right. Oh,
but
yeah.
but when you can be the child and know yourself as a child and receive all the love that's yours by birthright, everything changes. Everything goes better. That's constellation work. It's incredible. And yeah, when people can get that concept, their lives can change.
Oh, yeah, interesting. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah,
Because as
no, but
a
yeah,
child, you have your wisdom as a child that you teach just by being you as a child, though.
yeah. But I mean, you're going to be the child till you're 90 years old, 100 years
Yeah.
old, right?
True. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll always be the child of your parents, and your parents will always be the child of their parents.
Even though it's
That's
interesting when
just,
parents get old and if they are in a situation where they can't take care of themselves, then the child almost has to sort of fulfill the caretaker, I guess, role. I don't know. That's an interesting how.
yeah, yeah, but a parent's job isn't all about like caretaking, you know. It's
Mm,
it's I mean, you can still take care of your parents and not necessarily be their parents. You do it because you can, right? Or some people don't do it because they can't or they don't
but
want to.
there's an expression that it's almost like the roles are reversed, and there's like a thing a lot of us will use to describe that sort of
Yeah, I
scenario.
understand that, but essentially the roles
But
aren't
it's
reserved. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just because people think that parents have to take care of you, and
yeah,
yeah, uh, but essentially they're still your parent. They're
hmm,
still the father or the mother.
hmm,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Well, thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate it. This was really great information, and I want to hear more, actually.